The following episode of the Maui Chamber of Commerce's Business Matters was originally broadcast on March 31st, 2026.
Welcome to Business Matters, brought to you by the Maui Chamber of Commerce. And now here's your host, the president of the Maui Chamber of Commerce, Pam Toompop. Good morning, Pam. How are you today?
Hey, good morning, Gary. I am wonderful this morning. How are you this morning?
I am doing great. Finally got less rain. It rained a little bit this morning. How's it up? How's it up in Pukalani?
Well, you know, we've had a little bit of rain this morning too. I keep laughing at some of the weather reports. We keep thinking it's gonna stop, and I appreciate it lessening. I think we're doing very good on the water side at this point. We know we desperately needed it. I think we're doing good. But, you know, as it continues, I know our community is still working hard, you know, still addressing the big storm and the flooding and the trees down and a lot of debris and some massive destruction for many families. So, you know, I appreciate that everybody is working together. There's great community meetings happening across the island, not only in terms of what's being done, but also, again, I just want to share with everybody, this is a time now that we really need to plan forward and have our home preparedness kit be ready. You know, they used to say 3 days, be ready to survive for 3 days. But given the levels that we're seeing, and especially during this past storm, like I heard the mayor say, and many people are coming out and saying, you might need to be prepared now for 2 weeks. And once upon a time, I remember hearing I used to sit on a group called VOAD, Volunteers Organized to Aid in Disaster, a team of people that when disasters hit, stand ready to support. I did that when I was running United Way and still contribute in different ways, but not on that team. But, you know, in major disasters that might even hit across the nation, you know, there's other issues now where we've had times where they've said you might need to survive for a number of months, right? Maybe 3 months, maybe 6 months, depending on the level of disaster. You know, for example, if we were talking about something major, again, we saw a crazy outbreak with COVID, which was something that they looked at years ago with the avian flu. So it's important that we be prepared, at least for 2 weeks. Let's create a kit. We have a class we used to teach. We're looking to bring it back. We publish information for our members on the Chamber's website on how to prepare. But every family should be prepared. And 3 days nowadays is considered, a great start. But let's start preparing kits and making sure we have things that will last us for 2 weeks, especially if we have to shelter in place at home. But the kits that are starting for 3 days just help you if you have to go in an emergency, to have a kit that you could take with you to the shelter, have some of your own supplies, or if you hold in without power for 3 or 4 days, you know, get ready, because we're seeing things on many different levels, and we saw some pretty significant power outages as well. So it's time for us to get serious and get ready about preparing. On that note, Gary, do you have kits? Are you prepared?
I have the old type of kit, like 3 days worth of food and water. Actually, a little more than 3 days probably, but 3 days of water and food and animal, pet food and that kind of stuff. I'm working on getting a generator or one of those battery pack things.
Yes, we have. My daughter actually had just bought. I think she got it on Amazon. It was an electric generator that we were charging. When the storm hit, she was in Kula, had no power, but also the roads were blocked by a tree.
Wow.
So thankfully, her boyfriend and his family are ranchers and had equipment, so they went down to the road to set the tree up so that people could have at least one lane of access and get around it and kind of move what they could. But we fully charged it here, so because we didn't lose power in Pukalani, so they could take it back up there. But there's some amazing new things.
Yeah.
With technology
and it's fairly cheap too. It's not really expensive like how it used to be.
No, they're not really expensive. And I've had some conversation with people. Somebody said to me the other day that, especially with rising fuel prices, that getting a propane generator is less expensive to run. I have never really looked into that. But even we're looking at something bigger because, she needed that up in her household up in Kula. Thankfully, we didn't need it here. But again, if we did, we're looking again and saying, okay, we had that as a backup, but there's 2 households that are being maintained. So anyway, something for everybody to think about, because we've seen things more frequently and lasting longer than we expected from some of the weather reports, and it's just a time, I think, again, for all of us to prepare and get ready.
I think if you could afford it, you'd get, like, both of them, get a solar generator battery pack thing and charge it with the sun, and have an old gas-powered, propane-powered generator. That way you're totally covered.
I think absolutely, and again, protecting food and making sure that you've got things in your refrigerator. But also have a lot of canned goods is really important, and of course the tools in the kit that we teach. We even make sure that you have a can opener in your kit, right? But also one of the several of the items that we have in the kit that we recommend also has a radio that has a crank, and a solar cell, so that you can, if there's no sun, you can crank it up. If there is sun, you can put it out in the sun and let that charge it. And have ways to recharge some of the critical things like lanterns, so that you have some light as well. So, there's many different things. We will be putting some more information up on the Chamber's website. We just recently pulled out our old training, and we'll be looking to do something again in the near future. But in the meantime, sharing what the kits look like, working with different people to help publish the information, just to get things out there and remind people. But, also just really assess for your families. And one of the things we do with our kits is, a lot of them are in a backpack, and as long as you're hanging the backpack in your closet, that's not bad. But a lot of people store their backpack in the bottom of the closet. There it is, it's grab and go. But if you've got flooding, then that backpack is wet, and you may have damaged many of the items in it. That's why we recommend a plastic tub with a lid that's a little bit taller, so you've got at least 12 inches of flooding before it starts getting in your contents. So we like that approach, and it's also grab and carry and quickly put in the back of your trunk of your car if you have to run to a shelter. And again, our kit would last 2 people for 3 days, but again, you have to size things up for your family. And for those who have pets, to go to the shelter, you have to be able to keep the animals in the car or in cages. So there's so many things that we want people to think about. Also for families with infants and newborns, things to prepare and get ready for. There's extra equipment you might need if you're nursing, and things that you need to plug in, and so. Lots of things that we have to think about and take care of for our entire family, and of course for our kapuna, and making sure you've got your medication planned and have quick access to take that with you. So we have a checklist of things that we'll be sharing again and getting that out soon. But in the meantime, there's so many things you can also look up, but it's a great time to start preparing now. The storm has calmed down, but we're seeing an increase of these episodes, and we're being warned, across the globe, keep getting ready for more episodes.
Yeah, you don't want to prepare when they say the storm is on its way. That's a little too late, because
too late.
Then you have to fight with everybody at the store.
Absolutely right, because everybody's in panic and the lines are long, and so just save the time and get it early, and also gives you peace of mind.
Yes.
And have a spot. It's kind of, remember I don't know if they still do this, but remember that when you were a child in grade school, they had the fire prevention workbook that you would do, and you'd take it home, and it was a coloring book, and you'd do it with the kids, and everybody knew the plan, and you could post the plan so everybody knew where it is. Well, same thing with your safety kit and your safety plan. Have everybody have a copy of your home preparedness plan. Have everybody know your exit route if you have to leave your home, because when everybody's leaving their home, the roads get a little bit crowded. So think about where you're going to exit from. Have that plan available, and then make sure everybody knows where the safety kits are and where your emergency documents are. Preferably they're right next to each other, so that you're not running around the house to different places. You have one place that everybody knows. This is our grab and go. Maybe you have to have the dog crates in the garage just because of the space, but everybody knows where they are. And there's a list to remind you when you're in crisis and running around grabbing things. Here are the checkoff things. Check it off as you go along. Have a pen in your kit so you can do that. Simple things to make sure that you're ready. Have some key tools. You don't need a lot of them, but just have a couple of tools in case you need to fix something quickly. Screwdrivers and pliers and a couple key things, scissors, stuff like that. Make sure you've just got some key basics, with some medical supplies in there, as well as food and paper towels and toilet paper. Key thing being food, but again, hand sanitizers. There's a lot of little things that just, in a disaster are needed in case somebody gets injured, and just to sustain your family for a matter of days. And again, the new recommendation now is 14 days. So let's listen in and hear the messaging coming out from our leaders. But in your own household, be the leader in your own household to take care of yourself and your family, your pets, your children. Make sure everybody's well cared for, your Kona. Think through the different needs and plan for that. So I'm excited to share with you a couple of things that we're working on. One we're working on really hard that we didn't actually expect to be working on right now, but it's a really important issue. And it is this issue of two bills moving through the legislature right now. Bill 2694, of course, as they move forward, they have other attachments like House Draft or Senate Draft 1 or 2 as they move forward and there's slight changes. And Bill 2386. So these bills authorize the Public Utilities Commission to establish an automatic rate adjustment mechanism to address economic factors for water carriers. And what that means is they're trying to establish an inflationary cost index automatic adjustment mechanism that would affect Young Brothers, who is our primary and only inter-island shipping carrier between the neighbor islands. So we have some major concerns, and I want to share a little bit about those concerns with you because they really impact us all. Maui County and other neighbor islands, for us, inter-island shipping is not optional. It's critical. It's desperately needed. It's mandatory. It is the backbone of our commerce. Farmers, ranchers, food producers, grocers, construction companies, retailers, and more, rely on this significant transportation. Okay. However, this transportation cost is high, and it's continued to be high over the years, and it goes up periodically, and the rate increases has been high, which increases the cost of products across the state. And so you have to remember the trickle-down effect, right? All of those groups that I just mentioned, they are reliant on Young Brothers for shipping. And every time they get a rate increase on that shipping, they have to pass it on to the cost of the products and services that they offer. And already, for many businesses, shipping costs are already prohibitively expensive. Okay, and the Young Brothers rate increase is not based on fuel. So a lot of people, when these bills came out, thought, oh my gosh, we just took a big hit last year, and now over 25%. And we just took a big hit last year, and now we're talking about automatic rate increases with these bills. So we felt it was really important to talk to people about these bills and to understand what the intent was. So up till now, what's been happening is Young Brothers had to go before the Public Utilities Commission, which we call the PUC. And the PUC is there to really represent the interests of the people and the public, to make sure that any rate increases being proposed have justification, that they examine the business plan, they examine the financials, things that we as the public don't get to examine. And they have the authority to do that. Now, it's private because, again, there's market data in there, competitive information. So not all of that gets disclosed. But and in fact, a great deal of it doesn't get disclosed. But, there are disclosures about what the PUC finds every time they do a review. And then they have a report, and then they come up with a rate increase that they think is fair and justified given that. But it's been happening every so many years. And so what this bill was, the intent of this bill was to provide businesses with more stability in their financial projections. So if there were these automatic rate increases, then you would have a known rate increase that you could project for 2 years. And that would also then supposedly assist young brothers with the changes that are happening within their business. And given the cost and time frame to go before the PUC, it would give them some incremental increases before they went to the PUC. However, this bill is geared towards 3 years. So the challenge is we've all just had a rate increase in 2025. So then in year one, they would get an automatic rate increase capped at 5%. But the bottom line is it's not just capped at 5%. It begins at 3%. So it would be somewhere between 3 to 5% in year one and again in year two. But the kicker is that in year three, it's uncapped. And young brothers would go before the PUC in year three and get not get an automatic rate increase, but be able to go for a full rate increase. They would represent like they do every year. And when they get to that point where they represent every year, that's where we've seen high rate increases. And so this would give them that opportunity again to go in year three, while capped up to 5%. Up to 5% or at 5% in years 1 and 2. In year three, they could go for a much higher rate increase. And we've seen that multiple times in recent years. So without capping the increases in year three, we are deeply concerned that businesses and residents in Hawaii will likely see costs go up every single year. Increasing rates automatically without addressing the root and structural causes for the rate increase within the inter-island shipping system, and so soon after the last major increase, will only exacerbate these challenges for Hawaii's residents and businesses. It will raise the cost of goods sold statewide, intensified food insecurity, and our housing crisis, and it contributes again to our unfriendly business environment, which hampers our economic diversification efforts while providing no meaningful reform to improve efficiency, competition, or equity in the inter-island shipping system. So this is also concerning because Young Brothers has a monopoly. And many of the issues we face with inter-island shipping today can be traced back to the passage of Act 213 in 2011 that prevents water carriers from engaging in inter-island shipping unless they hold a certificate of public convenience. This essentially gives Young Brothers a monopoly. They continually state the difficulties of providing this critical service and loss of revenue meriting significant rate increases, as well as suggesting that other carriers do not want to undertake this service. But they also don't seem to want to amend HRS 217G-10 to allow for competition and give others a chance to explore the opportunity. So we were there was a small group that was invited to a meeting with Young Brothers and with several lawmakers that were taking up the two bills I mentioned. And so, again, Senate Bill 2694 and House Bill 2386. And this issue of, the neighbor island shipping and what they call less than container load shipping, many dispute. They say many of those shipments, go through just half full and it's a loss leader. Many of the people we speak to say that when the containers come in, they're very full. So there's data that we really don't have full access to, but the PUC does. And that's going to be important when I share some other things in a minute. But just on this issue of the monopoly, when you have a law that says that someone else can't compete in this arena, right? You have a law that gives them this monopoly to operate. They say they don't have a monopoly. We've pointed to the language of the law that says, others can't compete in this space. They'll say, well, nobody wants to compete in this space. There's nobody else interested. Nobody else can do it. But when you have a law that says nobody else can, what business is going to first, before trying to make a case to do business or spend the time and, the hundreds of thousands of dollars to do the business plan to even consider it, why would you do that when the law says you can't? So that brings up a question. When we started taking up these bills, we were less concerned about this issue of a monopoly, but more concerned about this rate structure in the bill and what happens in year 3. But over time, we and other groups have been deeply concerned because they have alerted the state that they, according to them, it is underperforming and a loss leader. Now, many businesses have a loss leader. They put things out at a lower price to attract customers and to provide services. But they're continuing to say this is a loss leader and that it's a huge challenge for them. So if at some point they simply really couldn't do it, we wouldn't be prepared to have anybody else come in or know if anybody else was interested because the law doesn't allow for anybody else right now. So there's definitely some issues that need to be further addressed with that concern. But, inter-island shipping costs really matter. And so we really need to take a look at this legislation. Currently, the 2 bills relating to water carriers in the state of Hawaii are moving forward very quickly. And we've had trouble raising awareness about this because it's not widely publicized. You're not hearing about these bills on the news, which is curious and questionable given the impact it would have and the trickle-down effect it would have for all of Hawaii, for all of our residents in Hawaii, because these costs, we're now looking at a huge rate, a staggered rate increase, which could be potentially huge in year 3, seems minor in years 1 and 2, that yes, businesses can plan for. But then to say you can plan in years 1 and 2 and not know what year 3 is going to be, and they go for a full rate increase again, given the history, is hugely problematic. So we're trying to share, and there is starting to be some growing awareness within the business community and community organizations, particularly community organizations that deal with the health and welfare of our residents and understanding the trickle-down effect and understanding our food insecurity and housing crisis is really important. And so more groups are starting to come together to address this issue. It really equates to higher costs. So what we're talking about is access to affordable goods in Hawaii. It is directly tied to inter-island shipping costs. When shipping rates rise, the cost of food, housing, materials, everyday necessities increases across all islands, placing additional strain on families and businesses. In November of 2025, the PUC, the Public Utilities Commission, approved a 25.75% rate increase for Young Brothers. Last year, the state's primary inter-island water carrier, which took effect in January this year of 2026. And now we're talking about bills to, again, give them automatic rate increases somewhere between 3 to 5% over the next 2 years, which are substantial for families that are already managing one of the highest costs of living in the nation. And so that's why we're really working hard to we've been ringing in every time these bills are heard and providing testimony for months, tracking these bills for months, to make sure that impacted businesses and residents across the state are aware of this effort. And it's really important for our industry groups to ring in and for every business to ring in on these bills that is impacted, because many right now are still unaware, and we're working really hard to do that. And right now we're putting out a survey where businesses statewide that represent thousands of employees. Young Brothers has many of their employees ringing in on this issue, and we understand they want to support their company. But we also need to know that the businesses statewide who represent thousands of employees can also ring in on this critical issue. And so we have a survey. And so that survey is something that is available through our coalition of different members who are coming together that represent, like the Chamber does, hundreds to thousands of businesses, and then, of course, thousands of employees, have a chance to talk about their experience with Young Brothers and shipping. What we're going to do, though, before I go into some of the survey results and some of the impacts businesses are reporting and more about the PUC, is we're going to take a quick commercial break, and then we will be right back sharing a message from the community and news and the Chamber. We'll be back shortly.
All right, welcome back to Business Matters. Pam, are you still there?
Of course. Thank you, Gary. I'm still here. And on that note, I just want to remind you, listening to the present comment about fuel, On that note, I just want to remind you that fuel is a separate issue that is not included in this rate adjustment. So that is for PUC because fuel goes up and down. So that has a different adjustment that they look at. But back to the survey, again, as we share about the impacts of these two bills, we again surveyed businesses, and people are still ringing in. It's very early. Of course, the survey came out last Friday, so it's very early, and of course, everybody's been dealing statewide. We have statewide partners, and everybody's been dealing with the storm statewide. So it's been just a challenging time to even ask people to take a survey, to be honest with you. But just wanted to share a couple of things. It's really, I'm sorry, I don't even remember the total number of questions, but I think it's 18 questions. But they're pretty quick. We ask people to do it. It really takes about 7 minutes to complete. And so for businesses, we really want to have them ring in. If shipping issues are a concern to you, this is something you really want to address. But from the responses we've gotten so far, I just wanted to mention a couple of things. Just some quick highlights. One question is, how much do shipping costs affect your pricing? So 35% said major impact on profitability. 40% said significant impact on profitability. 10% said moderate, and 15% said minimal. So that 75% said major or significant impact on their profitability, which means, of course, those, again, we mentioned how costs get passed down. 25% said, moderate to minimal, but 75% major or significant impact. When asked, do you support an ongoing YB rate structure in bills, 85.71% said no. They could have said yes, no, or unsure. And 14.29% said unsure, need more information. Do you believe an automatic rate increase for YB will result in higher costs of goods for consumers across the state? 95% said yes. 5% said no. Do you feel that ratepayers are at a disadvantage given YB's service monopoly? 85.71% said yes. 14.29% said unsure, need more information. And again, it was yes, no, or unsure, need more information. Do you feel local manufacturers will be hurt by these bills increasing the cost of shipping costs? So 100% said yes. So this helps explain something. And again, after the PUC's last review and approval of that 25.75% rate increase, right, after they approved that in 2025, they prohibited rate increases for 2 years. The PUC said, you've gotten this rate increase, and they prohibited a rate increase for 2 years. And the PUC is the one that has all of the insight from Young Brothers, financial records, and, just they have the overall operational activities that they get to review. So these are records that are not available to the public. And we trust their position. Their job is to protect the public. Their job is to review these records. Their job is to justify any rate increase. And so therefore, we feel these bills undermine not only their expert authority, but the will of the people who are struggling to survive during these times. In the words of the PUC, in their decision and order number 42-100 on the approval of the rate increases for Young Brothers, they said in this last rate increase, prior to establishing any kind of automatic rate adjustment mechanism, such as a WICI, we're calling it the WICI, the Commission finds that Young Brothers must first demonstrate that it is prudently operating its businesses, including managing its expenses and debt, maximizing operational efficiencies. So they said otherwise, the operation of the WICI may inadvertently serve to offset inefficiencies in other areas and mask shortcomings in YB's operations to the detriment of customers who ultimately bear these higher costs, and we would add, and pass those costs on to Hawaii's residents. So further, there was a report. They were working with Young Brothers on their operational efficiencies and getting more information. Again, they have access to do that, and it was a requirement of the 2025 rate increase. And we understand there were some delays with Young Brothers getting information to them. They're working to get this report out. This is a critical report that the public and legislature should see. However, to get it out to the legislature, which equates to getting it out to the public, because anything that's submitted to the legislature is open and available to the public, it becomes public information at that point and widely shared. Young Brothers has to have an opportunity to review it and make sure that no confidential or market-sensitive data is released in that. So that means it takes time. In our meeting that we had a couple of weeks ago, they were basically saying that the report from the PUC wouldn't be ready for about a month. Okay, so that takes us into April. And so if it's done in a month, that takes us to April. And the legislative session ends in early May. But even then, it doesn't go to the legislature because they have to send it to Young Brothers itself for them to review and comment. So we don't believe, given this time frame, that it's likely the legislature, before putting these bills forward for an automatic rate increase in years 1 and 2, followed by a full PUC possible rate increase that have always been high historically, they'll have the chance to even review this legislative session, which is why we believe the PUC said that we need a 2-year pause, right? That this should not occur for the next 2 years. So while one of the draft bills would look at postponing that for 2 years, we are, again, there's 2 bills moving forward. They're moving forward on different tracks. And we feel that we really have to look at this and be deeply concerned about, holding this for 2 years, get the report, bring Young Brothers together to work as a partner. The magnitude of this issue is great. And we're saying it's critically important that we have to get it right. And Young Brothers needs to be a partner in this. They need to work with the PUC. They need to work with the stakeholders. They need to work with their customers to find comprehensive solutions and a way forward before such a measure is enacted. That is our position. We respect the PUC. We respect the work that they're doing to analyze this. We feel that the PUC's report should absolutely be in the hands of the public and lawmakers before time to a 2-year rate increase. There is still so much uncertainty, and there's so many inflationary measures and changes. And so it's really important. And again, fuel is separate. That is not tied to this rate increase. Okay, so it's critically important that before we get into a repeating 3-year cycle, that we want predictability in their rates, because in the past they go before these huge rate increases, and then it's just boom, it's just this huge cost that everybody's struggling to figure out and then gets passed on. And to have a rate increase without a 3rd-year understanding and not even be able to predetermine what that might look like, and it could be substantially higher, is deeply concerning. So what we're asking for, what we're saying is that the consequences of this legislation warrant careful analysis. The urgency of these measures is concerning, particularly following the substantial rate increase that took place on January 1st, 2026. There is no need to rush this legislation. Again, they're not used to getting automatic rate increases after a big rate increase, so we don't feel we should rush this legislation. We request that they pause to allow for more thoughtful evaluation on the long-term impacts of this legislation on businesses, family, and the overall cost of living in Hawaii. This is not the time. So you can find these bills if you understand, again, the numbers of the 2 bills. It's critically important that you go to this. If you're concerned about this, we want everybody to ring in with their lawmakers, across the state. This isn't a Maui issue. This is a statewide issue. But, of course, in Maui County with our Tri-Island community, it's a very important issue to us. So it's critically important that we ask people to ring in on House Bill 2386 and Senate Bill, that's a different measure, one second. House Bill 2386, Senate Bill 2694. So again, if you can write these numbers down, Please also remember that this show goes to podcasts, it goes to YouTube, it goes to Spotify. So if the things that I'm sharing with you are lost and you can't write down at the moment because you're in the car and you're driving, please be safe and continue to drive. Don't worry about it. You can go back to our podcast. Just go Maui Chamber and you'll find Business Matters on YouTube and Spotify. We want you to take an active role in this if you believe that these higher rate increases and now ongoing rate increases, if these bills pass, will, drive up our costs and really impact every man, woman, and child and in the state with higher costs as we continue to move forward. It's deeply concerning. We know we're going to have rate increases over time, but this structure is deeply concerning. And while it was meant to give businesses some predictability, which you sort of have in years 1 and 2 because it's capped, there is no cap in year 3. And again, we've been dealing with big increases every several years as they go for a full rate increase. And we don't have the report from the PUC, and the PUC, who is our mechanism to protect the public, has not recommended this. In fact, there was a working group that suggested this, and it did not have a member they didn't have any representation by one of their customers. So they had zero feedback on that. The group that recommended this, didn't include anything like that. And while we appreciate their service, the PUC itself that worked with the working group does not agree with this recommendation for the reasons we've shared. So this is really critically important to understand. And so I hope you'll all take stock of this, think about it, and please reach out to your legislators and share your concerns. Or if you think it's a great idea, you can share that as well. But there's already a huge number of high-paid lobbyists who are trying to get this bill through without taking a pause to work on a better solution. And that's what we're fighting for.
And they can take the survey where, Pam, on the Maui Chamber website?
Yes, you can go to mauichamber.com and you can find a link there. So I believe it's up on the website specifically for our members, but I will make sure that it's available for all. So thank you, Gary, for asking that question. So we will make sure that it's up this morning if it's not already there. I've been doing more of the advocacy work, so I haven't checked to see myself. But if it's not, it will be there. And again, we're asking businesses to ring in. We're not asking the general public because what we're asking for is the ratepayers. So you do have to have a business email address. But we are asking the ratepayers to actually understand the service. We're asking them to also ring in on the service because the president of Young Brothers, when at our meeting, wasn't clear on some of the claims and some of the concerns that their ratepayers have. So the survey does have questions on that, where you can also ring in on how you feel about their service. You can give them a 5-star or you can give them a 1-star and share your thoughts on service as well. But what we are looking to do is have businesses ring in. It's not meant for, this survey is not meant for the general public. It's meant for those who are the customers of YB, so that they are sharing their thoughts and concerns as they're the ones. Well, the public anybody can ring in on a PUC rate increase. So you can see, just any constituent can ring in on the PUC rate increase. But on this survey, it's meant to inform legislators about the service of YB and their concerns with the rates that they are paying. But understanding those rates get passed on to everyone in our community. So yes, please look for that, and please ring in with your lawmakers on these two bills. So again, it is Senate Bill 2694 and House Bill 2386. So it's an important issue, and it's going to affect us all. And we just want to make sure everybody's aware of it, because in this time of, YB didn't create our economic crisis. They didn't create our housing crisis. They didn't create our cost of living, but their cost is passed on to all consumers, deeply contributes to that. So it's something we have to understand. And given the PUC rejected an automatic rate increase at this time, we think it's time to pause and work together on a solution. So we're asking everybody to help do that. I also want to talk a little bit about the chamber, because I got asked an interesting question. And it's not the first time, but of course, as we're gearing up for an upcoming election, somebody asked me if the chamber is a Republican organization. And we often get asked, is the Chamber a Republican organization? Is the Chamber a Democratic organization? What is the Chamber? And the Chamber, established back in February of 1910 and still today, is a nonpartisan, non-sectarian nonprofit organization. We are a 501c6 membership organization, and we do also have a foundation, and it is a 501c3. But the membership organization, as well as the foundation, are nonpartisan, non-sectarian. We are established to support businesses, understanding their critical role in the community. We stand for a strong, diverse, and vibrant economy to support all of our families and community, and work towards educating people on issues affecting our community, and work to strengthen our community and our Ohanas. So, and of course, we stand in strong support. Businesses employ, again, there are self-employed people, right? And we have some people who have different financial support in other ways to support them, but the majority of our residents are employed by our business community. And when they're suffering, and when we have a weak economy, and we have other issues that we're dealing with, like disasters and national issues and rising fuel costs and things, the Chamber is here in strong support of our economic health, our economy, and strengthening businesses who are the backbone of our local economy. So we are here for that. We are nonpartisan, non-sectarian. We are neither a Republican, Democrat, Green Party, you name the party. We are nonpartisan, non-sectarian. We are not a party organization. We represent the interests of all of our members and work to sustain and support our community. Now, having said that, we do candidate endorsements. And I would say on the whole, again, given the number of candidates that run for office over time, we've seen every party run for office, and we have reviewed every party in our candidate endorsement process of people who were running for office. But we do have a candidate endorsement process that we ring in on and address critical issues. And this is going to be a critical year. Amber, who works for me, said, you say that all the time. We are coming off of major disasters. We are coming off of a time of critical and urgent needs where we need people who know what they're doing and can jump in and expertly move us forward. And we need people who understand the issues. Sometimes we interview candidates for office in our compact process, and compact stands for Chamber of Maui Political Action Committee. We review candidates and try and assess, not only their understanding of their issues, but more importantly, their plan. And really importantly, their timing of their plan. How are they going to execute that plan so that we can reap the benefits? Because this is really a critical time for Maui County. And so I wanted to share a couple of things. First of all, just the calendar, because this is moving very quickly. On June 2nd is the end of the deadline for filing to be a candidate. So that's the deadline that people must meet if you want to file to be a candidate. So right now, if you're interested in running for office, this is for county, state, or federal office, representing the areas. You have to be a resident of the area, but representing the areas that you might want to run for, so county, state, or federal, you must file by June 2nd here in Hawaii. The deadline to withdraw candidacy, in case you filed for candidacy and you have remorse, you can pull your candidacy by June 3rd. The deadline to file objections to nomination papers is June 9th. June 19th is the final deadline to withdraw candidacy for if you have an illness. So again, for any reason, the deadline is June 3rd, but if you have an illness, you have till June 19th. June 24th is the deadline to mail ballots to overseas voters. So the ballots are already out. July 21st, voters receive their primary election packet here. July 27th, voter service centers open. July 29th is the deadline to register to vote. This is an important deadline to register to vote, July 29th for the primary election. August 8th is the primary election. So if you're a registered voter, don't forget to vote on August 8th in the primary election, because that determines the candidates that move forward. August 14th is the deadline to cure deficit for a return envelope for primary election. August 24th is the deadline to file election objections with the Hawaii Supreme Court. September 14th is the deadline to withdraw candidacy for illness from the general election. September 18th is the deadline to send general election ballots to overseas voters. So again, the ballots are out, but to overseas voters. October 16th, voters receive their general election mailed ballot packet. October 20th, voter service centers open. October 26th, deadline to register to vote for the general election. November 3rd, here you go. So first of all, don't forget, if you missed it and you want to register to vote in the general election, you have till October 26th. Then November 3rd is the general election. Do not miss this election. This is a critical election on so many fronts for our community, and there are different views. And people are eager to see us recover as quickly as possible. And we need a strong, diversified economy. We need to manage our budget in critical times. We need to prepare and be self-sustaining and be ready. So please do not miss these elections. Please make sure that you are voting again on August 8th in the primary election. Please make sure you're voting on November 10th in the general election. This, again, I can't stress, is a really critical time. And one of the things we do with our candidate endorsement process is we unite members of the chamber from a broad section of our membership and representing different industries who want to serve on Compact. It's a very long process. It starts with, in many cases, we're going to be reviewing this year's process with the board, so it hasn't been finalized, but we do put out surveys to get their opinion, and they have to provide a written response. We reach out to them to see if they seek a chamber endorsement or not. Sometimes they don't. Many do. Sometimes it's disappointing when someone has a particular view and thinks they can't learn from other views, or that we can't learn from them, because we all learn from each other in a process like this. But sometimes they feel like, well, I'd rather not even have a discussion, which is disappointing, but, that's their view, and that's okay. So we only endorse those who are interested in being endorsed by the chamber. We put out surveys. We have in-person discussions with them. And the data from that is just heard by those who are there, but then they make a vote. And the reason is because you have to hear their answers. And we tell people that, they need to come in with an unbiased position. They need to come in being ready to listen and learn and hear from candidates, hear their expertise, hear their plan, see what they've done that's been effective so far, see their roles and their leadership, learn more about them and find out what they will do to best serve Maui County, our state, and service at the federal level, which sometimes people don't see because they don't work at that level. But big policy happens at the federal level, and we need to support them in the work they're trying to do for Hawaii. And it impacts a lot of the funding that comes our way that we rely on for key services. So it's very critically important that we are engaged and listening and learning. And that's what Compact is about. We endorse candidates that are aligned with the views of our membership that they feel are critical and most important. And they're timely. They're based on this election. They're based on what's happening now. They're based on not policy decades ago, but the movement and the growth and the strides that we need to take now to sustain and support our community. So please take heed, follow the process. You can go, if you go to the Office of Elections, you can learn more. There's the State Office of Elections, there's the County Office of Elections, and learn more about what's available to, what information is available. You can get all the information on these dates that I just mentioned. You can find out the people who have registered thus far. But remember, as I mentioned, the deadline is still open for people to still register to be a candidate. So the candidate filing deadline is June 2nd. So people are still registering now. So please, we'll be sharing more as time goes on. But I want to I hope you'll look up these pieces of information. I hope you'll ring in with your state lawmakers about the bills moving forward on Young Brothers and say this is the time to pause, get it right. No automatic increases right now unless we're going to do something to cap year 3, and that's reasonable that businesses that pay these costs can afford. In the meantime, I just wish you blessings and aloha. Stay safe. Prepare for future disasters with your family.